If you see a picture of a Viking, he probably has a horned helmet on his head. But the interesting thing is that such a helmet never existed. So, where did this legend come from? In the 19th century, horns were added to the stage costumes of Vikings in operas to make them look more flamboyant. This image became so widespread that everyone started to think of the Vikings as such. So what were real Viking helmets like? Viking helmets found by archaeologists were generally simple, round, and had metal parts protecting the nose. But horn? None of them have such a design. In fact, it would be quite unreasonable to wear a horned helmet during a battle, because your enemy could easily grasp the horns and neutralize you. Yes, the Vikings were indeed warriors, but it would be a great mistake to see them as mere barbarian marauders. Vikings were also known as adept sailors, successful traders, and even skilled diplomats. According to historical records, Vikings traded as far as England, France, Russia, Byzantium, and even the Middle East. Some even sold furs and slaves in exchange for gold and silver in the Middle East. Vikings played a huge role in Europe's economic system. So much so that even today, many English towns have their names left over from the Vikings. And the Vikings were not only warriors, they were also farmers. They cultivated their lands, engaged in animal husbandry, and became rich by trading. Especially in Russia, there were rulers of Viking origin. They established their own management system and even laid the foundations of today's Russian state. So the Vikings were not just barbarians who plundered and destroyed. They were a civilization that shaped trade routes and interacted with different cultures. In medieval Europe, people didn't really care about hygiene, but for the Vikings, it was the opposite. So how clean were the Vikings really? Archaeologists have found combs, knives, ear-cleaning tools, and even special scent stones in Viking graves. So the Vikings even cared about dental hygiene. We know that most Vikings had well-maintained teeth, unlike some warriors who sharpened their teeth. Even Anglo-Saxon sources state that Vikings washed at least once a week. Since most people living in Europe at the time washed several times a year, the Vikings were much more hygienic than them, and their clothes were also very clean. With their clothing style and well-groomed hair, they looked much neater and cleaner than most European people. The Vikings used their own alphabet, the Runic Alphabet. They carved writings on stones and wood and left messages for future generations. Runes were not only historical documents, but also communication tools used in daily life. Sometimes words of love, sometimes memories of war were carved into the stones. Some Vikings even learned different languages, such as Latin and Arabic, and were able to trade in these languages during their journeys to the Middle East and Byzantium. Some Viking warriors worked as mercenaries in the Byzantine Empire. Even the Varangian Guard, the personal guard of Byzantium, was made up entirely of Vikings. Share your opinion in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe for more content.